Welcome to the Security Mentality course. I'm Josh Bressers, a member of the Red Hat Product Security team. The focus of this course is to introduce the listener to the mindset of a security professional and highlight how they're different from most software developers. At the conclusion of this course, you should be able to explain the basic features of the security mentality, how a developer and security professional differ in their mindsets, and understand how you can adopt a more security-like mentality when developing or reviewing code. Now it's time for a surprise test. Here's the question. What's the name and location of the second tallest mountain on Earth? You're not allowed to Google the answer. While you work on answering the question, I'll describe a similar exercise, the Kobayashi Maru. For you non-Trekkies, Kobayashi Maru is a simulation exercise from Star Trek, where a cadet is placed in a command when a distress call is received from a freighter named Kobayashi Maru, which has become stranded in a place called the neutral zone. In order to rescue the ship and its crew, the cadet commander must enter the neutral zone. This entry would violate treaties and provoke an attack by their enemy, the Klingons. The simulation was designed to be impossible to save the Kobayashi Maru, avoid a fight with the Klingons, and escape from the zone with their starship intact. The challenge was designed to test a cadet's discipline and decision-making when confronted with a situation where there is no winning solution. So do you know the answer to our question? Before we get to the answer, let's go back and consider your thought process. How many of you think you have the correct answer? How'd you get it? I'm sure that a few of you already knew the answer, but for the rest of you, how'd you find it? Did you use a search engine not named Google? Perhaps you used Google and hoped nobody was looking. For those of you interested, the correct answer is the mountain named K2, which rises 8,600 meters above sea level and is located in Pakistan near the Pakistan-China border. When given an impossible task, it's only natural for humans to find ways of accomplishing such a task to the greatest of their abilities, even if it requires them to sacrifice their morals and gain an advantage by cheating. A similar exercise was actually done as an experiment with a class of cybersecurity students. They were given 24 hours to memorize the first 100 digits of pi. The goal wasn't to see who could actually recall all of the first 100 digits, but rather to see the creative ways in which the students would cheat. Now I'm sure you're all interested in the results. What are the creative ways that the Kobayashi Maru students thought of in order to successfully cheat? On the left is a replica of the back cover of one of the course's textbooks, Little Brother by Cory Doctorow. One student designed a false cover on which he wrote the 100 digits of pi using a similar font and layout as the original. On the right, you see the can that another student used. He printed out the digits of pi on a small piece of paper and tried to pass it for the ingredients list for the soda. One advantage of this approach is the paper is more easily concealable. Other cheating techniques included one student with really good vision snuck into the classroom the night before and wrote the digits of pi on the ceiling tiles, while another wrote down the digits beforehand and tried to switch his pre-written answers with the test. My favorite is when one cheater decided to call the professor's bluff that they wouldn't actually check the exam and just wrote down some random numbers. Kobayashi Maru is just one example of the security mentality, but it does little to explain the mentality's structural and psychological underpinnings. Let's start by describing what a mentality is. Then we can explore the prominent features that define the security mentality. I'll begin with a brief introduction to the concept of mentality. Mentality is composed of three aspects: reasoning, knowledge, and behavior. Reasoning describes a person's internal thought process. Knowledge is a person's facts and principles. Behavior is how a person acts and reveals himself to external parties. The security mentality is distinguished by a unique combination of reasoning and knowledge. Behavior is not a defining trait, however, it is leveraged to describe the hacker mentality. First, we'll examine the reasoning component and its relation to the security mentality. Reasoning is described by Edward de Bono as consisting of two major planes. The first plane is the horizontal thinkers, such as artists, designers, and authors. They think creatively, preferring more abstract ideas, often ignoring what's plausible and imagining realms of fantasy. The other reasoning plane is the vertical plane, which contains engineers and developers. Vertical thinkers use critical thinking, analysis consisting of logical step-by-step deductive problem solving. Given a problem, They'll examine the facts and explore logical explanations to solve it. Critical thinking describes the standard software debugging process. In summary, creative thinkers are on the horizontal plane, and critical thinkers occupy the vertical plane. Since most of you are developers, or at least employ critical thinking skills regularly, I want to briefly explain critical thinking. Analyze. Critical thinkers analyze the situation and focus on solving the problem at hand. Infer. They infer data from their environment and previous experiences with similar problems. Problem solve. Critical thinkers use logical, step-by-step deductions to identify possible solutions. Evaluate. All potential solutions are evaluated based upon their advantages, challenges, and short and long-term implications. Decide. The best, most logical solution is chosen and implemented. Going back to our discussion on reasoning planes, we have the horizontal thinkers, such as artists and writers, and the vertical thinkers, including developers and engineers. So do you think security mentality should fall to the left and to the vertical plane, as an example of critical thinking? Or is security mentality more creative and belongs on the horizontal plane? Actually, it's a trick question. Neither answer is correct. The security mentality doesn't wholly employ critical or creative thinking, but a mixture of both. Therefore, those that think security utilize lateral thinking and fall between the horizontal and vertical planes in an area that De Bono calls the lateral plane. So what exactly is lateral thinking? In short, lateral thinking allows one to think outside the box. Another term that may be used to describe some types of lateral thinking is cheating. A more accurate description, though, would be the use of creativity to solve or identify problems. Lateral thinkers use tactics such as cheating to challenge preconceptions, traditions, or moral or social expectations. One example of a problem where lateral thinking is used is a situation puzzle. In these puzzles, it's the reader's job to figure out a scenario in which the puzzle makes sense. Here's an example of a typical lateral thinking problem. A man walks into a bar and asks for a glass of water. The bartender pulls out a gun and points it at him. The man says thank you, turns around and leaves. So what reasonable scenario could be used to explain this puzzle? One answer is that the man has hiccups. He asks for a glass of water to help cure them. Instead, the bartender draws a gun, which startles the man, curing him of the hiccups. In cases like this, people often reason using their critical thinking to solve the problem. They use preconceptions and expectations to try to make correlations, such as the fact that it occurs in a bar, or put too much thought into the gun. Since there's no obvious way to deduce the answer from the problem, only reasoning using lateral thinking will reveal a solution.
Please continue with Part 2 of Security Mentality.